Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. This is Juliette here and my colleague Manon, and we're very happy to meet you all in our talk about the DELF. So feel free to tell us in the chat your name, where you're coming from, whether you already teach the DELF, and whether you are private school, maybe state schools, wherever you are. It's been lovely to find out more about you.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know if you're already familiar with the maybe European framework for languages as well.
It's always good to know a bit more about the background of our colleague and delegates coming to join us. I know so many of you come from lots of different countries and different parts of England. Grand bonjour, oh, Stan! Lovely, every year I see you. Oh, so happy to see you again. Bonjour. Manon, faut que tu saches, en fait, Stan, c'était mon mentor et mon inspiration.
Oh,
si j'enseigne là où je suis, c'est grâce à vous. Hein. Franchement, je vous ai jamais oublié, mais oui, le temps s'envole toujours.
It's funny. Juliette is my mentor.
And do you teach, Sarah? Can you tell us if you teach the DELF already? And all new to you. Hello, Lisa. Lisa works with us at senior lecturer in St. Mary's University, Twickenham. We're very close colleagues.
Excellent.
Lots of people coming from all different parts of the country. Oui, mais oui. Mais c'est bien de savoir plus sur le DELF. Il est vraiment très intéressant à combiner avec les autres examens. Hello, Serena. Hello from St. Mary's. Lovely to see you.
Maybe we get a lot of
training at St. Mary's.
From St. Mary's, yeah.
Bonjour, Karine. You teach the
brilliant.
It's really helpful to have you. And Karine, let us know if you also teach the GCSE and the A-level in the school. Okay, in France, just starting the DELF, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Hello, Annie. Lovely to meet you as well. No, okay, that's fine, Sarah. Hopefully that will give you a bit more of an idea of what the DELF is and how that could be incorporated in teaching. And if you are from abroad and you're already teaching the DELF, maybe you're probably not familiar with the GCSE or the A-level exams in the UK, but it's an idea of thinking about how you can incorporate the DELF with whatever qualification you're teaching on this in your country, in your setting. Lovely, lovely. So what I'm going to do is je vais partager mon écran, ça te va? I'll start sharing my screen. So, and I apologize for all the tabs open. This is like my brain, how it's working. Okay, maybe we wait another minute or two to see whether we have more people coming in. And I know some people will be watching it on replay. So welcome to those who are coming and joining us as well on replay. And thank you, Manon, for looking at the chat. And I will look at the chat when you're talking.
Yeah, we do that.
Ah, super. On a des DELF examineurs. Très bien. C'est bien, Manon. Tu vas pouvoir parler avec des collègues.
Super.
Super. Okay, so let's maybe start, and then we can maybe slow for some people to have some questions as you go. So if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and then what we can do is to answer them at the end with my colleague. We can go back to the questions, and Carl and Manon is going to talk to you and she's making notes of all the questions. So you have our email address on the front of the slide. In fact, I need to maybe put it back so then you can see our email address again. Sorry, apologize. I'm just going to start again, which is on the wrong slide. No, wrong slide. There we go. If you want our email addresses, if you want to contact us, what I will do at the end is I'm going to put the resources with all the packs that you can use in your settings, wherever you want and wherever you feel that appropriate in your settings. So this session is mainly to see how we can incorporate the DELF in your settings, especially in the UK if you teach GCSE and A-level, and how the DELF can help you as a teacher to raise standards and to improve the quality of expression, authenticity, and fluency with your young people.
Mm-hmm. And also the uptake of French at GCSE and A-level.
In terms of motivation, and intrinsic motivation is really, really helpful. So the DELF is the Diplôme d'études en langue française. It's part of the Common European Framework for the Reference for Languages. So you have the CELI, which is the Italian version. So you're probably familiar if you are Italian, or the DELE, which is the Spanish equivalent. The Goethe Institute have one for German. So if you teach other languages, each language has its own proficiency test. It's a pass or fail exam, and it basically has a set of skills that actually give an idea of what you're able to do when you reach those skills. So it organizes the language proficiency in 6 levels, from A1 all the way to C2, with can-do descriptors, and you need 50% to pass. So Manon, do you want to explain a bit more about the different levels? Because you're
sure. So at the beginning, we're starting with A1. So it's really about being able to communicate in a very simple way. And then you move on to A2. So you expand a bit your understanding and your ability to communicate. We are still on 2 simple and routine tasks, but you should be able to describe a bit more things. Then you have the B1, which starts to be really interesting in terms of language. We also call it sometimes the level for traveling, because if you have the B1 level, you should be able to travel and get by on your own in a foreign country. So for example, being able to, deal with unexpected situations and things like that. Again, we are not expecting your level of French to be perfect, but it's really your ability to communicate that's important. So there's quite a gap between A2 and B1 for that. Then the B2 is really interesting because it's the level that's required to enter French universities. So really, if you manage to pass the B2, you should be able to follow a course in target language, because it grants you, admission to a French university in terms of language. So you should be able to, get all the content of your lessons and being able to debate, being able to, communicate quite efficiently. It's also a great asset to have on a CV. So it could open doors maybe to work possibilities, work experiences. But it's really what we want to do for our students is for them to finish secondary school, finish the 6th form, finish year 13 and get out with a B2 level, because then if they choose, they can go to France and they already have the qualification that shows their level of fluency. Even if they do A-level French, the problem is if they go to France, no one is going to know what an A-level is. So they might as well say, well, I've done A-level French, I've got an A, an A star, but no one in France is going to know exactly what it means. Whether when they say, here you go, I've got my DELF B2, I passed it. Oh, it's very clear straight away. It's more tangible. Then you have even higher levels. You have the C1. So the C1 is really a step ahead from the B2. It's the level required for top schools. But really, you should reach that level if you have spent some time in the country or, immersing yourself in the language. And C2 is really, it's the mastery, so it's a hard one to get. So for this one, I would say you have studied in France, you have worked in France, you have lived in France for some years in order to reach that.
And I think for those who are head of department here, and if you're thinking about the new offset framework and how they are very keen on careers and how you're motivating people beyond the curriculum and beyond exam specification, if you bring some of the DELF element to your lessons, you're bringing some careers options, and to look through the lens of what can I do with my French language? I can apply to university and combine French with law, with medicine, with business management, and actually making into a real life situation rather just an exam on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and also what's really interesting is that you can have your students talk about their DELF exams in their UCAS applications. So especially if they've reached, B1, B2, it's something that UCAS want to know because it shows that, they took an extra step in their language learning, and it's really a proof of excellence, really.
So obviously, a lot of private school will offer the DELF because they have the flexibility to offer the DELF as well as GCSE and A level, and they can. But if you are in a state school, the importance of bringing the Common European Framework for Languages, bring another element of depth and rigor in your
challenge.
Rigor and challenge into your teaching. So this is the grid that you can print from the links that I have put into the chat. You can print that and give that to your students if you want to, but we will tell you a little bit more about how not to confuse your students if they're sitting the GCSE exams. So when we started with the DELF, Manon took over as head of French, and she's an examiner for the DELF for many, many years, and she's an expert. She is the expert. So me as a school leader, I had to be going to my head teacher and try to think about how that's going to fit, because obviously it costs a lot of money to enter students into the DELF on top of GCSE and A levels, and there's no funding from governments to actually enter the students for the DELF. So we did a SWOT analysis and we looked at the strengths and the opportunities that was arising from those, from the weaknesses and the threats, and see whether it was worth it. And as a school leader, for me, it was sold. I mean, I knew it was the best thing to do, but for my head teacher, when he went through this with Manon, it was like a no-brainer. Yes, go ahead, Manon, knock yourself out, do whatever you want. So what did the head say to you, Manon?
Well, he said it was a great opportunity and it would really make our school stand out from another state school, because it's really unique that a state school is putting these exams forwards. So what we would like to do is actually open our school to be a DELF exam center, because sometimes, I know in the past, Juliette, you have sent students to take the DELF at the French Institute. So that's a great option, of course. So they have to do it in their own time. They enroll on their own. But if you have quite, if you're starting to have an interesting cohort of students willing to take a DELF, you can open your school to be an exam center. For that, you have to approach the UK DELF coordinator at the Institut Français. I can give her address if any one of you is interested. So it would be just having your school to facilitate the exams, basically. So you would just need rooms set up for the day of the exams. You have to follow exactly the date, the time, and everything, because it's set to take place at the same time. The only thing you have flexibility with is the speaking exams. So for the speaking exams, you need at least 1 or 2 teachers trained. If you have only one, you'll need to ask for an external examiner to come and help you for the day to run the speaking exams. So if you're interested to have your teachers trained, you can also contact this lady, the UK DELF coordinator, and she will tell you about these sessions. They are a bit long because it's a lot to take in, but once you're accredited, then you're able to just do the exams on your own, and you don't need anyone else.
So at Gumley, for our school, we have all our year 13 take at least one. Like this year, we had basically all of our students took the B2. One of them failed, but she's going to retake it. And she didn't prepare enough. But this is the good thing, it's the resilience. It builds resilience. And when our young people actually go through the exam and they go to the Institut Français in South Kensington, it's actually another level of, you're going to a center to take your exam, a bit like in France when you go to do your baccalaureate in another school. It's actually a big thing. But obviously now we have done all the paperwork, and becoming an exam center is actually much easier for us because now we can do it in-house. But the idea is that from next September, all our year 9 will sit the A1 to actually get something at the end of year 9. Be going into year 30, going into year 10. Now, the reason why we're able to do this is because we have Confucius Classroom and we teach Chinese at our school, and the HSK, which is a proficiency test in Chinese, has been running for a few years now. So we had we have played around the proficiency test with the Chinese, and we saw great advantages. And from experience and the data that shows us that all the students who take the HSK, they all of them end up with a grade 9 at GCSE or a distinction at the pre-U exam for Chinese. So it is the proof that this exam is excellence and actually really pushes the standards for your young people. So Manon, do you want to walk us through the A2, which is the GCSE?
Yes, so the format is the same for every level. You always have the 4 skills. You have compréhension de l'oral, so listening, compréhension des écrits, reading. Then you have production écrite, writing, and production orale, speaking. So you always have the 4 skills. They weigh the same, so it's all on 25 marks. And to pass the exam, you need at least 50 overall. You also need to score, I think, at least 5 in each individual skill. Otherwise, it shows that clearly there's a lack of, ability in something. So we cannot award you the level. But yeah, basically for the A2, if you look at the speaking, so that's the last one at the bottom, it's 6 to 8 minutes. So that's our aim with the GCSE levels, for example, because it's kind of a similar length in terms of the exam. It's in 3 different parts.
And for the A2, which is the A-level exam, do you want to go through that one as well?
Yeah, so again, same format. We have the 4 skills there. So the main difference I would say here is the speaking, because it's completely different from what they do in class. For the A-level, there's no IRP, there's no preparation before. The only preparation they get to do is on the day. So they get to choose between 2 texts and they can prepare it for 30 minutes, and they are supposed to use the text to build a reflection on the topic, an organized reflection on the topic. And then it's a debate after this little monologue.
And the main thing about these 2 exams is the idea that what they're listening to, the recording, and also the speaking elements of it is real life situation. So the speed of the recording is very fast, much faster than normal GCSE and A-level. All the instructions are in the target language, which is quite different from the GCSE, from the part A, the section 1 of your GCSE paper. And also it creates the writing tasks are all very much real. So we're going to go through how you can incorporate now all of these activities in your schemes of work, so then you don't lose sight of what you need to do for obviously your GCSE, your A-level, or whatever you're teaching, but how you can bring the elements slowly into your schemes of work. So for example, this is a junior paper for the listening. We don't have the recording, but what we wanted you to see is the type of task that they have to do for listening. So as you can see, it's very different from the GCSE, but it's accessible. And if you're looking at the tasks that they have to do, your students in year 10 or in year 11 probably are able to do this. It's just the method that is a little bit different. Manon, do you want to take us through the method?
Yeah, the method, and also I want to talk about the target language. So all the DELF exams, everything is in French. Okay, there's no English whatsoever, because the DELF are very international. So they are going to be taken everywhere in the world. Hence, they're all in French, even from the A1 level. So it's something that you have to get your students used to. So all the instructions, everything is in French. So here you see, for example, vous téléphonez au théâtre, vous entendez le message suivant. So these kind of things, you really have to get them used to it, because sometimes it's a bit longer than the GCSE. Also, the listening is a lot faster, I would say, because the language is quite authentic. They get to listen to it twice, but it's a lot faster. Usually when I do it in my DELF booster sessions, my students are a bit, oh, Miss, it's going so fast, so fast. So what I want to get them to is that if they are used to this pace of language, then the GCSE will seem like a piece of cake for them. But in terms of the question, you see there's a lot of true, false, or, tick the correct information. This is a reading for A2.
And the good thing about the reading is you can look at the resources that are on the DELF website. If you're really stuck and you don't know where to find things, there's lots of resources, and we will share that at the end with you. But you can really look at the topic that you're teaching. And for example, this is the topic of the holidays, the GCSE holidays, which we were teaching with our year 10s, and we kind of looked at, well, what's out there. And then Manon is fantastic. She's organized all the resources in topics, so we can find things in, you know, in the drive. And if I need a text or a recording for something to do with, you know, I don't know, this is holidays, I can go on Manon's drive and find resources easily. So this is
We're still working on it. It's taking a bit of time, but we're hoping that once we have that thing to work with, it's going to only be easier. So here, as Juliette says, it's holidays. So you can see the length of the text is maybe a bit longer than the GCSE, and the language is going to be a bit different as well. We had a question here about the alignment between the GCSE high frequency vocab list and the DELF. So there's no vocab list for the DELF. The idea of the DELF, it's all based on authentic resources. So usually it will be extracts from magazines, articles, maybe even radio extracts, advertisement extracts. So here you can see the text, for example, it's an extract from 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So it's always going to be, yes, they will cut out some parts if needed, but it's always something authentic, hence why there is no set list at all. So it's really a matter of them being able to understand in context when they don't understand a word, as it would be if they were in France and facing a text like that. So, you know, they would use every other clues that they have to understand.
Yeah, and it's a good question. How does the DELF align with the set text, set list for the new GCSE specification? Well, the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't align at all, because the DELF is basically an authentic exam, and there is no set text, set list of the vocabulary, foundation and higher. So when you're teaching the DELF, you are doing back to the old specification where every word in the language is taught and is used all the time. So we spend time to teaching on topics which are very similar to the topics of the GCSE. So in a junior paper, they talk about holidays, they talk about hobbies, free time, social medias, cinema, music. So the topics are very similar to what you're going to be teaching, but there is no set list of vocabulary to learn, and it's basically an authentic language. So sometimes we look at the paper with Manon and we go, oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, we need to make sure we teach these words. So we're kind of all the time looking at authenticity and looking at authentic resources when we're teaching.
But you can see how using authentic text is going to help your students, you know, raise their grades and standards, because then you're going to be working with synonyms and things like that. So when they speak, you know, they'll be more likely to reuse different words because they've been exposed to different words.
And also it's true, like, you know, like you were saying in the chat, that if you look at all the papers, that the same sort of vocabulary keeps coming back, and they all kind of easy to kind of incorporate within your lessons, because they fit quite well with your GCSE topic anyway. Do you want to talk to us through this one as well, because this one is on?
Yes, so this one, there's a few exercises like that. So it's a true false, so similar to GCSE. The difference is that you're going to need your students to copy a quote from the text, just take it and copy into the box. Exactly as it is, to justify the answer. And they can only get the points if they have both the vrai faux that's correct and also the quote that's correct. So this is quite interesting, because even when you do a true false in GCSE, when you mark it, I'm sure you're going to be looking at the text and looking where in the text you find the answer. So it's kind of the same thing, but here you have to write it down.
And it really teaches them to look for details and reading. If you have a big priority in your school with reading and literacy, for example, this is a very good task, because it really forces them to look for the actual the questions and the sentence that is the correct answer. So that's a really, really good exercise. And this is another reading, quite similar, but again, you can see from the perspective of the authenticity of it. And then it's about the gist of the message. So what is the message about, which is quite different from the GCSE. You probably wouldn't have that question at GCSE, but you're teaching them to cope with new skills, and you're in France and you're seeing this, and what is this email about? And I think it's highly motivating for young people, instead of looking at, the true or false not mentioned, to look at a real situation as what do I understand about this text, and actually giving them confidence that they actually can understand it.
My students really enjoy this kind of activity, trying to find out what it is about.
Yes.
They find it really motivating and fun sometimes.
This
Oh,
one
this one is a good one.
exciting because you did that with your class.
Yeah, so this one, vous avez fait un voyage à Paris, so you're supposed to talk about your trip in Paris. So I like this one because our classes have done a trip to Paris last year. So actually, it was a perfect example of this is a real life task. You just imagine you've been to Paris and you talk about, what you have been doing there. And someone said, but Miss, I wasn't on the trip. What can I do? I was like, well, you have to make it up as if you were there. So this is what happens in the exam. You picture it as you just finish your trip, and you just, write about it. You're being creative about it. So they really enjoy doing that, actually.
One of the girls was in a Nice trip, and she said, but I didn't go to Paris, I went to Nice. And then you said to her, okay, well, you can think about what you can write about. It's about the skills. And often you find in year 10 especially, they often want to say things they can't say. They're trying to overcomplicate things, and then you keep telling them you're marked on what you can say, not what you can't say. So don't try to say things you can't say. So the point of this exam is to really train them to look at the skills they can do, and then you transfer that skills into GCSE. And you don't necessarily need to give them the mark scheme for this particular task, but they're very curious and they want to know, so if I did the DELF, Miss, would I pass? Would I pass? They really want to know. So you can, at your discretion, of course, you can give them the mark scheme, and we will give you the mark scheme at the end, but don't lose sight of what you're trying them to achieve. If you're in a GCSE situation or setting, you can mention it as a low stake activity, and then you can say to them, oh, well, if you were doing the DELF, it would be a really good task and you would probably pass. And they're like, oh, motivation for the young people is actually really important.
Actually, this task, I really recommend it. You can always include it with your topic about holidays.
Yeah. And this is another one about the French exchange. And we have a French exchange. So maybe in your school, if you have pen pals and exchanges, that's a lovely task to do, because they can not only reply to their pen pals, you can send the letters over, saves you 2 jobs, but at the same time is preparing them for the GCSE and the DELF. So it's really, really interesting to do that one. So the speaking is a little bit different. So Manon, do you want to take us through the speaking and how it benefits people who teach GCSE?
Yeah, so for the speaking, again, there's nothing you can prepare in advance. So that's the main difference with the GCSE. In GCSE, they know the themes and all that. But for the DELF, it's all about authenticity. So there are some themes that always come back, as someone mentioned before in the chat. But basically, task 1, entretien dirigé, it would be just about the examiner asking a few questions. So for example, tu t'appelles comment? Tu as quel âge? Tu as des frères, des sœurs? Qu'est-ce que tu aimes? C'est quoi ta matière préférée? Maybe some cues to try to get them to use the past or the future, but nothing too serious. Then the monologue suivi, so that's a part that they can prepare a bit before. They have 10 minutes to prepare before for the part 2 and part 3. So the monologue, they have to talk about something. We are going to show you examples on the next slide. So they can pick 2 and they choose the one they want. So it's not too restrictive. So hopefully they have one they want to do in the 2. But they have to just talk about the subjects they are being given. And the third one, quite similar to GCSE again, it's a role play. So I love this one because it's a role play, but unlike the GCSE, it's very free. In the GCSE, you really have to follow your script line by line. It's very strict. But in this role play, you have a problem, you have a situation, and it's all about authenticity, right? So you have to come to an agreement to, resolve the situation or whatever it is. So you can take it in whatever direction you want. So for example, this one, un vieux professeur, votre professeur de français part à la retraite, vous allez le voir pour lui offrir un cadeau, vous le remerciez, vous lui demandez son adresse pour pouvoir lui écrire. Just a short interaction about this, and always make sure that your students know how to greet, how to say goodbye. that they are familiar as well with using vous, because here it would be a teacher. So I think vous would be a bit more relevant.
And I think what's really nice about this task is for year 11s, they are brainwashed with GCSE role plays all the time. And then, you know, when you have the exclamation markers and then predictable questions, and, you know, they know exactly how it works. But what they really like about this, it's sometimes when I do it in my class, it's a freestyle talking. So sometimes I would say, I have maybe Taylor in my class, and you know, you can imagine Taylor doing that, and she's with Ruby, and then one of them is the teacher, and they would really go, "Je suis désolée, je m'excuse," and they really go for the role play, and it's so refreshing, and the kids love it. So it's really making the atmosphere in your classroom a little bit less tense, because they find the GCSE quite stressful. So in terms of well-being, it's actually quite nice. It detends, you know, the atmosphere in your classroom. And then if you bring the authenticity, then you can bring back the GCSE and say, hey guys, you've done this with the DELF, so let's formalize this a bit better for the GCSE for your exam. And after that, because they've done this, they can actually do that for their GCSE. And even with this one, these are the question, the exact question of your GCSE conversation questions. So you could actually give them some sujet, and as a do now activity or a starter, what I do is I would basically give them two, and I would say, okay, so imagine you have the sujet 1 or the sujet 2, and you have to talk to your partner for 1 minute or 2 minutes about it. Go for it. And it's very similar to the questions. So it prepares them really well as well for the GCSE.
Yeah, and it prepares them to develop a bit more too, because they have to talk on their own. So you're not really allowed to ask them questions. So you can see how it would be beneficial for the GCSE. I always tell them, if you don't give us enough, we'll just be fishing more information out of you. So just develop. And this is a great way to get them to develop.
So moving on to the B2, which is more like for the A-level, but the idea is to incorporate authentic resources in your A-level teaching, which you probably do anyway. But the idea is that if you do that often enough and incorporate that often enough in your teaching, then it becomes normal for them when you show them an exam DELF paper. And thank you for my colleague who shared the link to find the example paper. Once they see them, they go, oh yeah, well, we've done that in class. Yeah, I've done this before. So it's actually when you say to them, would you like to go to the Institut Français to take the exam? And they go, oh, I'm not sure. And then you show them the paper and they go, oh yeah, but we've done this in class, miss. Yeah, we've done it. So there's nothing that you haven't done already. And then they go and do it, and they're really excited to think that they've actually done something beyond the A-level. So this is a typical exercise for the listening, and it works really well with the topic of, you know, the idea of multicultural society, decolonization that you teach at A-levels, les dom-tom, la relation entre les différents pays francophones, hein, aussi l'opération des associations caritatives and les bénévoles, all of them fits with your A-level topic. So you could use this activity easily and incorporate it in your listening. However, the task is very different from the A-level questions. So Manon, do you want to tell us how you do it?
Well, the thing here is really the pace, the language as well. So it's much, you know, more difficult than the A-level, I would say, because it's completely authentic, you know, audio files. So either they have to extract exactly what information they need, or they are going to, you know, have to really listen out, because maybe it's not going to be in order. They are going to be using synonyms. So even though it's harder at B1 and B2 level, I would say it's easier in the way that to teach A-level, you are probably using authentic resources anyway. So, you know, in that way, they're already a bit more used to, you know, the fast pace and things like that. So it should be a bit easier for them, but you do have to, you know, explain and remind them, especially at the beginning, okay, it's going to go fast. Let's see how we can prepare together and work with the preparation a lot.
And sometimes the accents, because they do choose real authentic accents. So you might have a Swiss person talking, not that I'm saying Swiss people have a weird accent, but for young people who are used to hearing you as a speaker, when they hear a recording with another accent, someone from the south of France with accent Marseillais, for example, they feel a bit, oh, I'm not quite sure what they're saying. So it's explaining that we have different accents, and if you speak Canadian French, you probably will speak with a different accent than if you were coming from Congo or if you were coming from Luxembourg or Switzerland. So it's quite interesting and authentic in that sense, in terms of cultural differences, I think. Exercise 2 is quite difficult as well, but it teaches them to think about the summary questions. But this one is an activity that I adapted from the GCSE questions, which you can do for the A-level as well. But this is the example I did last week, so I just copied and pasted it, so it was quicker for me. But you could do that with A-level. You have an exam question, so you pick a listening activity that you have already with an exam from GCSE or A-level, and you can see the questions, but what you do, you just change the question to the style of the question for the DELF. That's it. It's not very rocket science, so I haven't reinvented the wheel here, but what I've done is I've taken the transcript and I have asked the students who are going to sit the DELF exam to just answer the question differently. So if I have a weaker students who are not going to be able to sit the DELF, they will do the normal questions. But if I have students who are a little bit more advanced and they're going to sit, they will adapt and they will sit, they will differentiate by task in the classroom. And the students really like the fact that sometimes they say, well, Miss, can I try? And I said, yeah, of course you can. So I always bring the two together and they can choose, do you want to do the GCSE or do you want to do the DELF question? And if you want to do both, go for it. And often you find that students who you would never think of trying, they try, they want to have a go. Yeah, so it's Ruby the Taylor, you know, from the year 11s, they're always going to have a go and say, but Miss, look, I've done it. And that's highly motivating for the young people.
Yeah, it's just about giving them the opportunity. Sometimes they will be really happy to just take it and have a go at it.
Yeah. And this one is an interesting one because it fits quite well with the topic from, you know, that you're teaching. But the reason I put it there is because it's long and it's scary, because it's an actual extract from an article, which you would probably do at A-level, you know, nothing new, but because it's from an exam paper, it's a different setup and it looks quite scary for a student. It's all in French and it's actually a jargon that is quite difficult. So you would break it down like you would do with a normal reading task, and you would probably kind of work through keywords, get them to find synonyms, try to give them like the keywords from the actual text, or give them, the weaker students, some key phrases to understand what's going on. But the idea is to go through the exam questions from the DELF rather than an A-level task. And then you say to them, hey guys, guess what? That was a bit de reading. And they go, oh, really? And then you give them an A-level reading paper task and they go, oh, well, that's easy. So, well, yeah, of course it is, because you've been sitting the DELF question well, much harder, but you don't tell them at the beginning. You just practice with them and you really break down the test. You can do popcorn reading with them. So they read different sentences if you're not familiar with popcorn reading, but they read out loud to practice pronunciation. And one of them shouts popcorn, and then they can pass on to someone else and they carry on reading. And then the idea is you practicing, or, you know, reading out loud, practicing vocabulary. So something that's not clear, you can explain, and everybody's engaged with it. But then they get to see an exam questions like this, which basically is much easier than actually an A-level question, much harder, sorry, than an A-level question. Okay, so again, like similar, trying to find synonyms in the A-level questions, you know, that question in a paper where they have a text and have to find the word. Again, that's very similar to what you have on a DELF.
Yeah, in the B2, there will always be some words that they don't know. Okay, it's made that way for them to be able to, you know, use the context to understand.
So this is a task that I did with year 12. So we were talking about le rap. Est-ce que le rap est un genre misogyne? So it's again an authentic resource that I picked from the internet, and the idea. So it's quite a long text with lots of complicated jargon, but we did popcorn reading with that one. And then at the end, what I did is I incorporated some key tasks from the DELF, but I gave them a challenge B2 to do. So the one who are not going to sit the B2 or the B1 because they're a little bit struggling at the moment, they're not ready yet, they will do the résumé. So we're preparing for the A-level résumé for Edexcel. So que pensent certains rap du français du rap? So really structuring the summary, because you're supporting the young people to get through the task. But then for those who can do it, because they're native speakers, you give them a challenge B2, which is more about the culture and having a conversation with a stimulus question, which is what Manon was explaining before. Do you want to go through that again, Manon?
about being able to talk about the subject, the debate. So here it would be being able to, like we spoke about before for the speaking exam of the B2, being able to have a reflection on this topic in quite an organized way. So I would get them, for example, to plan what they are going to say. I would help them, plan their answers. So when they are starting to talk, they are feeling a bit more confident. I think the planning comes for a big part of the job there. And actually, the planning is also very important for the A-level, for the writing anyway. So as you help them prepare their, their little speaking, you also, strengthen their planning skills, and that helps them for the writing at A-level.
So I'm going to move on to the actual resources, because nearly time for us to part already. So time goes so quickly. But the grille d'évaluation de la production écrite is available for you, and it's in the folder that I have shared in the chat, but I will share it again right now, actually. So if you want to have it for your own resources, you can have a look. But you can, at your discretion, you can show them the grille d'évaluation de la production écrite and orale if you think it's going to help your young people. But the idea is that you give them a chance to see what they can be assessed against. So for this one, again, like this one is an activity that you could easily use for the speaking in terms of the A-level similarity in topics about censorship and how can you say everything you want on the internet. So very, very similar. And you can scaffold it very easily on for the young people who are a little bit struggling. You can really scaffold the task before they are able to move on to the A-level, to the DELF task. So the authenticity of it is actually making it bring into your scheme of work. So what I would advise you is to never lose sight of what you're judged on. So the mark scheme for your GCSE and your A-level is key, because that's what your young people are judged on. But you incorporate the elements in your schemes of work and in your resources, because you can't lose sight of that. What we decided with Manon is to make it very low stake. So it's fun, it's, giving them the motivation. And if they're ready to take the exam, they can take it at different times of the year. They can take it in March, they can take it in June, and then we send them, or we host the exam in June, but when we send them over, it's when we feel they are ready to take it. So if they want to retake it, they can retake it 3 times as well in the year. But make it fun and interesting for them. And the idea is to make it really authentic with songs and poems and literacy text, and really develop their literacy skills. This is Manon. Do you want to talk to us through?
Yeah, this is our French exchange. So as we were trying to work on our DELF, we also incorporated that with writing to our pen pals in Paris. So we have a lovely exchange project with them. So it, it gets them to use their French skills in real life, which is what the DELF is also trying to do. So this is a very real project, and they see when they write how they can reuse these skills when they, prepare for the DELF.
There you go. And these are some of the books that you can use and resources if you want to find some resource and text and listening skills. They are available on Amazon. We have them, and we basically use them and incorporating them with our teaching. And for me and Manon, the final thought is that it has to be a fun element, because the new GCSE, the new specification are very dry. I don't know if you're like me, but I personally think that having a set list of vocabulary doesn't really teach the young people to speak a language. And to make them enjoy it and having fun with it, I think bringing some element of the DELF makes it far more realistic and enjoyable. So if you want to bring it in your schemes of work, please contact us. Here's our contact details again. Feel free to email us or find us on Twitter. Manon shares all her resources on the TES, so she's amazing. So thank you so much.
I haven't put everything there, but yeah, thank you everyone very much for listening to us, and we hope that you've enjoyed this idea of maybe bringing a bit of fun, a bit of real life into your GCSE and A-level, because this is what it's all about.
Exactly. Thank you all so much, and we're looking forward to hearing from you again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.